This afternoon, I have been blessed to spend some time with Richard Wilson. Richard Wilson is the owner of Wilson Diamonds. Has anyone driven by Wilson Diamonds, seen their store? Richard is an amazing person, and you will thoroughly enjoy his presentation. Richard began selling diamonds as a student here at BYU. He was a student and ended up graduating with a degree in microbiology and chemistry, wanted to be a doctor. But his success in the diamond selling business while a student convinced him to make a career out of it. He ended up getting an MPA here at BYU as well, and has grown Wilson Diamonds, which is now the largest jeweler in Utah County. Richard sits on advisory boards for national jewelry organizations, is a member of the American Gem Society. In May of this year, he was asked to participate in a debate published nationally in the leading magazine for jewelers. Do I have any bike riders out here? Who's an avid bike rider? What's the longest you've ever ridden? 100 miles. Richard has done over a dozen 1,000-mile bike rides, but he's also ridden from here to Alaska, and he's ridden from Oregon to New York twice. So those are 3,000-mile trips. So he's a very passionate, avid bike rider. He's also the father of 6 children. He's been married for 30 years and is a grandfather to 5. Richard, thank you for making the time to come speak. And here's a little token of gratitude from the Center for Entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Okay, we working? Everybody can hear? This ought to be a good challenge, keeping everybody awake at 4 in the afternoon. I think that's probably isn't that the worst time you could have a class? Well, we'll see if we can't keep you awake. I'm decidedly a small business. I know you've had some real high-powered people come and speak to you, people like him. that really understand entrepreneurship, but perhaps we can give you some insights that will be good in a small business. I have 21 employees, and we do only about $4 million a year. That may sound like a lot, but in the world of business, that goes quickly. That can be spent very easily. It's not what it sounds like if you're looking at it from a student perspective. I think one of the great influences that I had to get into business was that I grew up very poor. I was one of 10 children. My dad worked for the government, and when I stepped out the door to come to school, there was no discussion about finances at all. It was just understood, you're on your own. And so I had to get through school completely on my own. That's not as hard as it was then as it is now. So I don't want to over-aggrandize that. But nonetheless, it was a great place to start because anything you did was just gravy. You had nothing. And so it's easy to be happy when you start with very little because everything's a bonus. It also gave us the impetus to take some risks while we were students that didn't have a lot of consequences. In other words, if we lost everything, oh well, we weren't married at the time. So in the sense of true entrepreneurship, I don't know how really qualified I am, these people that take huge risks and take on huge debt and get started. I started with $300. I bought a diamond. We reinvested the profits from that, and then when that sold, we reinvested those, and we did that. And the thing that really helped us, though, is we lived as students, as cheap students, for the first 5 years. we took almost no money out of the business, and that was key. And to me, that didn't... there have been 44 stores go out of business that I know of in the 33 years I've been in business, regular retail stores. It's an extremely tough market, but that's one of the things that I think was an advantage for us, is we let the business grow for the first 5 years. And in fact, I didn't buy a new car until I'd been in business 20 years. But there were so many people that start a business and they have what I call Corvette mentality. They want to get that fancy car and so on quickly. As soon as they start to make some money, they start to pull some things out of the business, and that will usually hurt a business. The startup money is really crucial. Here's a I was so poor when I came up to school that we found out where Deseret Towers and Helaman Halls had their sacrament meetings. And we went to the sacrament room late on Sunday afternoon and picked up the bread that was going to be thrown away on Monday morning. And so I never bought a loaf of bread all the time I went to school. And we would make our sandwiches out of that. I don't think that's unethical. But it was, those are fun times. I really think they are. It's a simple life. It's uncluttered. And you get joy in lots of small things. The only real risk that I took to get started came after we'd been in business 4 years. There was a ring company called Feature Ring Company, and they were the biggest in the country. They supplied all the major stores, people with 100, 200, 500 stores. Their minimum order was 6 of a number. That means, if you wanted a ring style in your store, you had to buy 6 of that number. So it was very prohibitive for a small jeweler to buy from them. Plus, they wouldn't give you the time of day anyway. So my brother, who started business with me, in fact, he's the real risk taker, he decided that we needed to get the rings from Feature Rings because these were all the rings that people wanted. They were the real desirable ones. And so he called them up. He schmoozed them into visiting us, but when they saw our operation, they just refused to sell us. So he kept after it, and about a year later, he finally convinced the rep to give us an appointment. And he called me while I was on my honeymoon, for which my wife will have eternal leverage whenever we have an argument. And he said, I got an appointment with Feature. Can you be in L.A. tomorrow? So I showed up in L.A. to have this appointment. And at that time, we had $3,500 in the bank. And so we picked out 6 styles that added up to about $3,500. And the rep looked at us and said, I don't open anybody for less than 30 grand in gold. And that means the diamonds that were in the ring were on top of that as well. And so I was thinking, we're done. We're sunk. And my brother says, okay, well, let's pick out that many then. And I thought, you're crazy. We're students. We have $3,500 in the bank. What are you doing? But we went ahead and we picked out a whole mess of rings. It was enough to stock a big store. And remember, this is 6 of a number. So you get 1 ring, you've got 6 that you have to buy. But they were prime styles. They were really good stuff. Anyway, long story short, 2 weeks later, the head financial guy from Feature Ring calls us, and he says, I can't sell you. You don't have any credit. We said, well, what would it take to get credit? And he says, you'd have to have a $30,000 credit line with the bank. In other words, if the bank gives you a credit line, $30,000, I'll sell you. So we go to the bank and says, what will it take to get a $30,000 credit line? And they said, we can't give you a credit line. You have no collateral. You have no credit. You're students, for heaven's sakes. And so I said, well, what would you need to get a $30,000 credit line? And he said, I'd need $30,000 on deposit in an escrow account, and it would be tied to the credit line. So if you have $30,000 sitting there, I'll give you a $30,000 credit line. So we went around the next week, and everybody we knew, we asked them to lend us $1,000 or whatever they had for a week. And by the way, I'm not recommending this. In fact, I don't even know why they gave us the money. But we got $30,000 together that week. We put it in an escrow account in the bank. We got our credit line from the bank. We called the company and says, we got a $30,000 credit line. He called the bank. The bank says, yeah, they have a $30,000 credit line. He shipped us our order. We took all the money back out, and we gave it back to everybody a week later. Then we had 30 days to raise the cash to pay for it. And that was kind of a stressful month. But my brother was right. The rings were so good, it was no problem. We had the $30,000 that month because they sold well. They were the hot styles. And that was our big risk. But that put us on the map because Feature Ring, if you could buy from Feature Ring, you were a big player. And so after that, you could open anybody. You'd go to a diamond source, and they'd say, okay, I need credit references. And you'd put Feature Ring at the top, and they'd say, oh, that's good. And, there's 5 credit references, and once you put Feature Ring on there, no problem. So it was a real key stepping stone because now everybody perceived you as a player. Whether you were or not was subject to debate, but nonetheless, that was a big break, And we were able to parlay that into getting the top suppliers. The top suppliers still don't solve everything because they require lots of, their opening orders are not small. But again, if the stuff's bought right and it's good, then it takes care of itself in the business end. So that was probably a big turning point in the business, for which I'm still paying for in my marriage. Once we were buying from Feature Ring, it made sense to open more stores because you got to buy 6 of a number, and that inventory is just sitting in your safe. You might as well open another store, and you've got all this on display now. So we opened a second store and a third store. But once it got to be 1984, I didn't like my life. I was way too busy. I had a couple little kids by then, and I got married in 1979. And I had, they were starting, anyway, I was just too busy. And my life really sucked, I thought. I was getting rich, but there was no time to enjoy it. It was just too much work. So we closed 2 stores, and I went to a 4-day work week. I only worked Monday through Thursday because it made no sense to me to be earning all this money and life was passing you by. That's where the legacy of bike trips started soon after that because we started taking elaborate vacations. They weren't expensive vacations. They were just elaborate. But I've had that fault most of my life. If a little bit's good, then a lot's better. And so I overdo lots of things. But and I've been able to hold to that 4-day work week for the last 20 years or so. And that's still what I work Monday through Thursday. Because business will eat up everything you give it. And you'll turn around and you got nothing but money, which is really, really not very comforting. So I saw no point in dying with $10 million in the bank. I could easily die with $2 million in the bank and be happy. And so that was a key decision. I'm extremely, extremely happy that I made that decision. We've had some really terrific times riding bikes together. I think there are maybe 4 things that I can identify why we survived and eventually did well. And a lot of other things, a lot of other stores didn't and don't. They're still going out of business. First of all, we ran the business with no debt. Only one time in my history did I borrow money, and that was because an employee embezzled a bunch of diamonds and ran off with about half the inventory. And I had a cash flow problem, so I had to take a $100,000 loan for 6 months, which wasn't too bad. But other than that, I've run the business without any debt. I'm not sure that I recommend that for all businesses. I don't know if it's even workable for most businesses. But for me, it made more sense to go slowly and have patience rather than have all the stress. Because once you borrow money, you got stress. You've also got overhead because now you've got debt service on the money. So you can't weather a storm very easily. If sales go down, you're in the ditch pretty quick. And then your credit rating starts to drop. And when your credit rating drops, you can't buy from Feature Ring. And the big boys, because they don't tolerate people with bad credit, they have the best prices and the best stuff. They don't need to do business with people that are going to mess around with paying them. So everything starts to hurt. That's why we built it, and we were very patient. Another thing that really helped us is early on, I decided I was just going to be an engagement wedding store, not a fashion jeweler. So we decided to specialize early on, and that gave us huge advantages over competitors. Right now in the store, we've got at least 5 times the rings on display of my nearest competitor, engagement rings. So when somebody wants an engagement ring, we have huge advantage with selection. It also allows you to buy better when you specialize because engagement rings turn faster than fashion jewelry does. So your cash flows better. And when your cash flows better, then you can buy better. And when you can buy better, then you can charge less money. And when you charge less money, you get more business. It's a great cycle to be in. But that's another reason why I think we lasted is we specialized. We're not a fashion jeweler. We sell nothing but engagement rings and wedding bands, just wedding jewelry. And I think the third thing that maybe helped us was I never had an empire-building mentality. I didn't want 10 stores and to be very rich. I just didn't want it. I grew up with very little, and so some was plenty. I'm not hurting, and but I don't have any stress either. Well, yeah, I have stress, but not the major kind of crushing stress that can happen if you get heavily leveraged in a business and you've got lots of things going. The engagement specialization also makes it fairly recession-proof because engagement rings, right or wrong, are seen more as a necessity as opposed to a discretionary purchase. So you can debate the moralistic values of that, but nonetheless, that's how people see it. So I think those are key elements in how what helped build the business and why we survived. Utah County is a very tough market, especially for selling engagement rings. It is incredibly tough. That's why the turnover is so great in the businesses. But now we're an extremely tough competitor because we've been doing this cycle of buying better, and then you can lower prices. You lower prices, you get more business. You get more business, you can buy better. And after 33 years of that, you become a pretty formidable competitor. So, for instance, we compete handily with people that sell diamonds on the internet and have 10% margin in them. You can't live on a 10% margin unless you have no overhead. I mean, nothing. Basically, the people on the internet are brokers. They don't own any of the diamonds. They make a deal with a diamond company that cuts diamonds, and they say, we'll list all your inventory. You ship it to the customer. We'll just be the phone guys. We just get on the phone, answer the questions, talk about this diamond, how beautiful it is, even though we don't have it and never will have it, and then we'll get you to ship it to the customer. And after the 5-day return policy is up, then you can bill us for it. See? And that's how the internet companies. We can compete with those people because of this 33-year cycle of buying better and always making it tougher and tougher to compete with you. That's difficult to do, and it takes a lot of patience, and that's why you'll never build an empire doing that, because you never get so much excess profit that you have all this money to spend. But I don't mind a little hard work, so that's how we structured it. Questions? I don't want to just go droning on here forever when you have things you want to know about.
Instead of shutting down the stores, why won't you just hire more people?
Good question. Good question. Even if you hire more people, it's still a lot of stress. In fact, it's even more stress when you hire more people. They rarely understand the business the way you do. And in Utah County, it takes a very fine understanding of the mentality and the culture to do business. And little things will make all the difference in how you price things, how you treat customers, how you respond to service incidences, and so on like that. Those stores that I had other people in at the time, they weren't near as efficient as our main store. Not nearly so. And so we said, okay, we're going to put all our eggs in one basket. We're going to make it a superstore. We're going to make it super efficient. It's going to, and the volume's here to be done, you know. It's just, you have to, and that's why. It just runs, and you still have the stress.
When it comes to pricing, how you keep the competitive advantage?
You continually buy better. By the way, do I need to repeat the question for people? Are you being able to hear it? Or? Okay. He's asking how we keep a price advantage. Price alone is never a good niche for very long. There's always somebody that'll come along bigger, better, that'll eat your lunch. But the way we've been able, in this valley, it's almost crucial. You have to. I wouldn't say, I'm certain we charge less than every jeweler. I know we do. I've checked them out. I've sent secret shoppers. I've sent pros in to see what's being sold. I know we do. But customers rarely will figure that out. It's hard for them to compare like I can get a pro to compare or so, you see. So price isn't going to be a good niche because customers aren't going to figure it out. But I still think I need to keep prices down because you have to have everything going for you in Utah Valley. You have to have service, quality, and price, all three. And the only way you can make it work is volume. You have to have a lot of volume. If I didn't have BYU and UVU here, I couldn't work this business model, no question. But the way I keep price down is I keep this cash flow going where I can continually buy better. I've been buying at sources in Antwerp, for instance, for a number of years, and they are a good source. But now it's going to Bombay because the labor's cheaper and all the diamonds are being cut in Bombay. So this February, I'm going to make my first trip to Bombay. You're always searching for a better price, and you can do that when you get more and more cash flow. Bombay's been off limits to me before this because I didn't have $1 million to spend at a time. Now that I do, now I can go to Bombay and we can cut another 10% off it, you know.
So what specifically, you talk a lot about customer service and that kind of thing, besides rather than price. So what specifically makes you unique with your customer service?
Good question. She's asking what makes us unique in our customer service. I'm a real nuts and bolts guy based on the fact that I think that way. I have a hard science background. And it was very frustrating for me for years because I knew I was better at this, as far as the nuts and bolts, price, quality, the kind of diamond I was delivering. And the business wasn't responding, you know. So I was tearing my hair out, what little of it there was, about why this wasn't fair, you know, kind of thing. And the number one reason people were giving through surveys on why they bought at our place was, I felt better there. And that drove me crazy, because you felt better there? What is going on? But what happens is all those things work together to where your employees, one of the ways we train our employees is we send them out secret shopping everywhere. Everywhere. The wholesale guys, little guys selling out of their house, everywhere we can find. And when they come back and compare with our straight up price in the store, now they know where we sit with everybody. That makes them really passionate employees. You know, before they thought they were going to Richard Wilson's School of Indoctrination, but now they have hard evidence, they saw it, they were there, they know what prices are being charged. So they're very adamant. So when people come in, part of the reason that they buy there, and the niche that is my best niche, is that people feel better. They feel better because the salesman person is very, very adamant about our prices, quality, and service, the way they're treated. Most people see service as the way they're treated in the store, not necessarily the items of service like the free sizings and stuff like that. So that's how we give better service, is people feel better in the store, which drives me crazy.
Just wondering, how does the retail diamond business work? Do you buy loose diamonds? Do you buy set diamonds? I mean, do you buy direct from like, you know, the blood diamond, like?
Mines are not your source. Just like if you want to buy a car, you don't go where they're mining iron ore. You go where they're making engines, okay, or where they're producing the car. Same things in diamonds. The source is where it's cut, not necessarily where it's mined. So I buy directly from cutters, but there's all sizes of cutters, see? That's why I'm going to Bombay. The big guys with the low overhead are all in Bombay. But I get my diamonds loose. You can buy them mounted, but that's only for small guys, because those people are buying them from places I'm buying them from, and they're just putting together a turnkey package deal for the store, and if you want to do them that way, you can. The primary reason we started with loose diamonds is, first of all, we didn't have any rings. And the reason we stuck with it is because we got into a mentality of showing people. Interestingly enough, when we first started selling diamonds and we were going against all the established stores, the stores would say, oh, at that price it's got to be garbage. And since people didn't really know how to tell quality, it was credible. So we'd lose business because the store said, we've been in business 20 years. Trust us, that's garbage at that price. And it was believable. So we started getting equipment to show people what they were buying as a defensive posture. So when that happened, the customer could say, no, it isn't. I looked at it. In fact, I saw this and this and this. And, you know, and that saved us. But that's why we sold loose diamonds. So basically, we buy the rings from one place, the diamonds from another place, and put them together in the store. It's much better for the customer that way. The loose diamond, they can see quality. So we don't sell anything mounted.
You talked about when your customers get in the store and getting them to buy, but how about getting them there in the first place? When so many of you see all the ads, how do you get them to go to your store?
Very tough. It's a very tough question. Early on, we decided that if we were going to have this niche of price, we couldn't do conventional advertising. It has to be more efficient than that. So the first thing we've done is we've tried to make our advertising much more efficient. We have a very high standard for what we put into advertising and promotion. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We do some traditional advertising, but we try to really think of innovative ways to advertise. Okay, for instance, I don't know if this is going to work, but this is what we're going to do next month when it gets good and cold. We've gotten a city permit to stand on the corners of BYU and give out free hot chocolate. You know, courtesy of Wilson Diamonds. Nothing in return, no literature, no nothing, just free hot chocolate. It's cheap. Your market is so concentrated here, you can do things like that. I can sit a guy in a corner all afternoon, and my total outlay is $100 for the afternoon. And how many students did I get goodwill with? And how many might be in the market for an engagement ring? Hopefully then I got enough goodwill that they'll come into the store. Then I got a chance to tell the story. I got a chance to make my case. Okay? But trying to make your case before they get in the store, it's wasted. There's too much misinformation. There's too much information. You can't tell who's good and who's not from advertisements. So we try to think of things like that. Last year we put on the BYU Tulsa game in Kiwanis Park for free because a lot of people didn't have CSTV. We got permission from CSTV and we put it on totally free. We even gave out free hot dogs. Okay, that was very effective for us. And during halftime, we played a couple of our little TV commercials, but there was nothing too intense. It cost us about $3,000 to put on the game, but we had 5,000 people there. And I don't know how many marrieds were scamming in on a cheap date, but hopefully there was a lot of singles there. We got a lot of feedback from that it was a good deal. So that's how we just try to, for instance, we own 4 Mini Coopers that we put our advertisement on because a billboard in the middle of town costs $2,000 a month. The payment on a Mini Cooper costs $300. And you have a car when you're done. A billboard, you got nothing when you're done. And then I give those to employees that are up on campus, and so they get, mixed up, and we got a fleet of 4 of them now. So we try to think of things like that are $300 a month instead of $2,000, that are more effective, and we have very high standards for advertising. The number one way that we promote the business, though, is word of mouth, as by far our best promotion. So we do some things to really promote word of mouth. The best thing you can do to promote word of mouth is be a good business. If you take care of the customer afterward, so we understand that our after-the-sale service is crucial to our advertising efforts. Absolutely essential. Because people have a good experience when they buy, but then they're saying, I wonder if they really mean it about all these warranties and all this nice stuff they said during the sale when they were trying to get me to buy. And then after the sale, when it comes true, then that's when the referrals really generate, because they say, wow, this did happen, and you get really strong referral chains going. That's the biggest way we do it is referral chains. Yeah.
Picked out this really hot styles that really paid off for you. How did you become so good at picking out good diamonds or rings?
Well, we watched what people were buying at other stores. We went and secret shopped other stores to see and kind of talk to the salesman, and they'd usually tell you what was hot and stuff inadvertently. If you went in as a single guy and you were shopping, by the way, we made sure and did that when no other customers were in the store, so we didn't take business away from salespeople. And if somebody else came in and says, you know what, I got to go, and then we were very careful about that, so it wasn't an unethical thing. And we're still careful about that. I still send my salespeople out secret shopping all the time, but we're very careful to. And you'd pick up things like that. You'd lose 5 sales in a row to this one ring that somebody had, and you say, we got to get that ring. Stuff like that. You just keep your watching. But you're right. That still to this day is one of the toughest parts of the business. If you can guess what people will like, business is easy. But guessing what they like is really hard. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about your bike ride. Do you go with your wife, or what? Like, who's like the lead when you go on your bike ride?
Me and my kids. I've gone cross-country with 2 of my girls. And I've gone cross-country with one of my sons, and the other, and then both sons and one of the girls went to Alaska with us a couple of years ago. We started it, I don't know, it was just kind of weird how we started. We were just looking for an adventure, something fun to do that was a little bit tough. I'm kind of, I like to do hard things. I like to push myself. And so we started doing this, and then the kids really caught on. They really liked it. My wife doesn't go. And we don't take any backup. We like to just go and make it more of an adventure. So if we get into trouble, we got to figure our way out of it, you know. So there's no sag wagon when we go. We just try to make our way, and sometimes that gets you into some really tough situations, but later on you laugh about it, you know. So, but there are no synthetic diamonds. There's a lot of misinformation right now about them. The only cheap, by the way, does everyone know what a synthetic diamond is? It's, when we talk about a synthetic, that's the very same thing as a natural. It has the same chemical structure. It is a diamond. A simulant is just something that maybe looks like a diamond to an untrained eye or something. But a synthetic is the real deal. That's a real man-made diamond. Okay? They have bright yellow synthetics, and when I say bright yellow, they're like her jacket there, really yellow. And they have green ones and they have orange ones that are cheap. They're not real cheap. They're about half the price of diamonds. But there's no white synthetics that are cheap. It costs you more money to make a white diamond than it does to dig it out of the ground. If that ever changes, I don't know what it'll do. But part of the reason people buy diamonds is they're expensive. That sounds contradictory, but if they were really accessible, they wouldn't do to mark a special occasion. And if diamonds ever get really accessible, people will go to a different tradition. It has to be somewhat special. I hate to use that word, but oh well. It has to be somewhat out of the ordinary to hang on as a tradition like it has. That's a nice tradition.
How have diamonds, the value of diamonds changed with respect to commodities through time?
There's only one time in their history where they've gone down. But boy, did they go down. By the way, if anyone's interested, diamonds for you are not a good investment. Okay, everybody got that? Diamonds are not a good investment. They are for me, but I can buy them much better and I have a ready market to sell them. Both of those things are missing from you. You can't buy them well enough to make them an investment. They're going up continually, but you can't buy them well enough to make them an investment, and on the selling end, you don't have enough sellers to get the liquidity. You'll get killed. Okay, having said that, diamonds have gone up consistently about 5% on the average a year. They're wonderful that way for like upgrades. Somebody gets a tiny diamond when they're a poor student, and 25th wedding anniversary, the guy wants to do something really spectacular, and so he gets her a bigger diamond. Well, they held their value well, but you can't buy and sell them and make money, see? So as consumables go, it's unique that way, but it still doesn't make it a good investment. In 1982, diamonds took a horrific drop because everybody started thinking they were good investments. It really drove the price speculative way up high, and then the bottom fell out. But it was because everybody started thinking they were these investments, and really credible investment houses were pushing diamond portfolios. It was a huge mistake. Diamonds dropped 70% in 1982. And but that's the only drop in their history. I don't believe it's true because there was one family that controlled diamonds for a long time. First of all, nobody knows the answer to your question. It's kind of like, are Hummers rare? Yeah, you don't see that many, like the H1, you know, the original Hummer. You don't see that many out, but if you go to certain places like the factory in Indiana, you can see lots of them, see? That doesn't mean they're not rare just because there's lots of them in one place. No one really knows the answer to it, but there was one family that controlled them, and it was a more plausible argument when that family controlled them that they weren't rare. But now that's all been decimated because other mines have opened. The family has lost control. Yeah. And the family has lost control of the world diamond supply, and the rarity is no longer in question. Otherwise, people would be selling lots more than they are. It still takes 10 tons of earth to find one 1-carat diamond. And that's a lot of mining to find this stuff. Now, if you go to where they're concentrated, like if you go to a cutter, yeah, you can see lots of diamonds. But compared to all the people in the world, it's not that much. So, but, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense, really, on whether they're rare or not, except for the industrial sector. The industrial sector that buys diamonds for industry, that makes a big deal. But for purposes of marking an occasion and showing how important something is to somebody, they work well, and it doesn't really matter. You're not buying it to resell it anyway. So, yeah.
What made you decide to downsize instead of regrow and mature and then to harvest? Because either way, you would.
True. And there was a temptation there. I could see that it was a lot of work right now. Did everyone hear the question? Okay. I could see that it was a lot of work like then, and the temptation was, but if I just hang on for 10 years, then I'll be over the hump, and it'll run itself, which is a myth. And I'll have this money, and I'll be able to retire, and I'll be able to go on a dozen missions, and you know, all these altruistic things that come in to tempt you. It's a myth. During that 10 years, I would have missed the family. And that was the decision that I made right then. I just didn't want to risk it. It may have worked. I may have been able to do it, but huge risk, and it was a risk that you couldn't go back. It wasn't like losing money where you can go out and make some more. It was a window where your kids were growing up, which was never going to be repeated. That was too much risk for me.
In your store, do you hand out water bottles? I'm just curious.
It's just a service item. It also gets your advertising out. People carry them around, you know, when they leave and so on like that. But it's just a way to treat customers nice when they come in the store. We actually stole the idea from another jewelry store. But that's free enterprise. You can take good ideas and use them.
You mentioned an employee ran off with your diamonds. Do you have any kind of insurance that can help with that kind of deal, or is that just kind of bad luck?
I don't have insurance that'll cover that. Almost no insurance covers employee theft to the tune of what he took. I haven't even put in any more internal controls since that happened. The reason I haven't is because internal controls really slow up the flow of showing diamonds in the business. And, you know, I look over the life of that business and I see the 100,000 and I say, we've made much more business being accessible to the diamonds and not having some bureaucracy that was checking out diamonds to people and checking them back in. So there's no controls. I just count on hiring good people that are, sometimes you miss, but try. You had a question back here? Over here? We aren't. We may be hiring in about a month, depending on somebody's situation. By the way, another thing that contributed, you asked about niche, and why, or was it niche or service? A lot of the reason people feel better there is our people aren't on commission. Now, it's tough to motivate people without the commission thing because they go, hey, I'm making my $12 an hour whether you buy or not. So what I've done is you create a business where you have lots more participation. You pay lots of people on profit sharing. The whole business does well. Everybody participates. And you do some other things involving them with committees that make decisions for the business. They're binding, which is a little scary sometimes. But you involve them that way, and they share in the profits, and you're able to get the motivation. But the key thing is then your customers are treated well when they come in, because this person doesn't have to glom onto this person and say, please, please, please buy from me. I need to pay the rent this week, and it comes across in their sales pitch. But that's a key ingredient, too, on why people will say it just felt better there. Well, I hate court. I hate the energy it takes out of a business. I hate the adversarial nature of it. So when there's a crime, it's pursued by the state, not you. You can't sue somebody for a crime. The state does it, okay? And the state took him to court, but they let him off on a misdemeanor and ordered no restitution. And I called the judge and says, what do you mean no restitution? I lost all my diamonds. He stole the diamonds and traded them to build a house is what he did. So he had this big, fabulous house. And the judge said, well, you can sue him civilly to get back the money. I had no stomach for it, so I just walked away. It just cankers your soul to sit there but if you want vindictiveness, this may be, we never handed out these. This is my cumulative wisdom of 33 years in business. You can take one if you'd like. I didn't make it a focus of things because I felt that unless you're in business, it won't mean that much to you anyway. It's kind of like somebody telling you how to be a good parent before you're a parent. It just goes right over your head until you got a kid that won't sleep through the night. Now you're listening, see? So I didn't pass this out, but one of the things on here was never make ego decisions. And that goes along with this court thing. That would have been an ego decision, not really a good business decision. Okay, nobody dares ask a question because the bell's about to ring. Thank you. It's been fun.